Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm David Thomas Lynch.
Yes, that's right.
Did you want to introduce me?
Well, this is the very first time you've ever been on the Kongversation, so I was going to build up to it like, you know, any good foreplay. You've got to tease, you've got to titillate, and then, you know, you eventually just stick your engorged member inside. And David, this week you're my engorged member. So welcome to the show. David, this is your very first Kongversation. This is an historic moment. That's right, an historic moment. Look it up. This is... How long have you been with DK Vine?
I don't know, like 17 years, I guess.
Yeah, so David... I believe you were part of the new staff, right? When Chad and I first went to do Green Porn City, we don't talk about that much, but you're part of that crew. Am I correct?
Yeah, basically we tried to run the site for a while and it didn't quite work out, so we just gave it back to you.
And that's fine. We kept you around though. First as a pet, you know, because you know we fed you and you wouldn't leave, so. That was fine. We put a little cedar bedding down, and you soiled yourself in the corner, and it was adorable. But then we grew fond of you, and we realized you made for a brutal totalitarian moderator on our forum. And that's where you've made some of your best friendships in life, David, was as moderator of the DK Vine forum.
Yep.
Yeah, the neon image of B. Locker from off Donkey Kong 64 still haunts many the typo-spewing idiots from the mid-aughts. But we switched...
And, of course, the Nazis from the 2010s.
Well, yes, those as well.
Sorry. Yeah. Never been a better time to join.
Never been a better time to join. Yeah, well,
I don't run the forums anymore, so go.
Exactly. So we introduced Iron Fist, and then Iron Fist hired the Iron Fingers, and you know the actual site staff stripped ourselves of moderating powers and just distanced ourselves from the forums, and we're like, you know what, we're too close to this thing, we have too much history, we just have to kind of take a step back for a while. But in light of that, we were like, well, we've got to keep David around, and so we decided, you know, let's just make David a staff member. What is with his arbitrary like separation of powers? So yeah, David, you went from site moderator for the better part of a decade to site staffer this year, and yet I haven't been able to get you on a Kongversation until now. So welcome.
Yeah, all it took is for a conversation where nobody else could be bothered to show up.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, and that's quite the pessimistic, cynical way of looking at it. That's a very DK Vine forum moderator way of looking at it, David. But I viewed it as who best to share the joys of Donkey Kong Land 3 with me, and I thought, David Lynch, there's a man who knows some Donkey Kong Land 3. So you're the best man for this job, quite frankly.
I got 103% twice.
Considering there are some DK Vine staffers who have not played Donkey Kong Land 3. So the fact that you've beaten it, well, therefore, you are the best person to actually talk about it. So, Donkey Kong Land 3, David. Oh my God. This is
It's a sequel to Donkey Kong Land 2.
That's good insight. This is a weird one, and I think the best way to begin our journey into the heart of Donkey Kong Land 3, the sheepy center of Donkey Kong Land 3, is to go back to the summer of 1997, more than 20 years ago. And, you know, that E3, which was, I believe, late May back then, but Nintendo Power wouldn't carry the news from E3 until June. So essentially it's still lined up pretty much with what E3 is to us today. But that E3 was going to be the first E3 post-release of the Nintendo 64 and post-release of Donkey Kong Country 3. So there were expectations from me and from the Donkey Kong fan base, the Donkey Kong Country fan base, which, you know, to that point, there wasn't a DK Vine yet. So we existed in pockets, in little settlements.
Well, there was barely even an internet back then, so...
Yeah, there was an internet, and it's worth
just
pointing out...
whatever friends of ours are able to put up with our weird shit.
Right. There was an internet, and this was about a year before I got online full-time. I had a brief affair with America Online, but I know I've brought this up somewhere before, if not this very show, but that was back in the day when they didn't offer you unlimited internet. It was basically you were online and you were being charged by the minute or something.
Well, so it's like 10 free hours.
Yeah.
So you just keep on getting more discs.
Right. So they would entice you with so many free hours, but then when those hours were up, it was like you had money in the meter. It was just like it just ran out, and then you had to keep putting money in if you wanted to be online. It was essentially like a sex booth, one of those peep shows. You know, it was kind of fucked up, and it was not any like.
Oh, that's why there's so much porn.
There was no coherent way to run the internet, and I remember. So I was online probably some point in '96 or '97, and my parents were like, "This is ridiculous. You're boosting. Like we've got astronomical phone bills. We're getting off America Online." And then by the time '98 rolled around, it was like, oh, you know, that's no longer a thing. They offered the be online, and for as long as you want, you pay a flat monthly rate. And I think that's when...
about the time I got on.
Yeah, that's when the majority of America got online. But 97, there were people online. Keyword, you know, Nintendo or NOA, or I forget what the keyword was. But
it was Nintendo, I think.
Nintendo, okay. But it directed you to Nintendo of America's AOL site, with Diddy Kong in like this toxic waste dump or some sort of like
weird.
Yeah, sewage plant. But fond memories of that all the same. And we're actually looking to incorporate some of that spirit into DK Vine's upcoming site redesign. So full disclosure there. Anyway, while some people were online, I was not, and so I had to rely on gaming magazines like Nintendo Power to give me my news. And so E3 97, summer of 97, we had full anticipation that they were going to reveal the Nintendo 64 iteration of Donkey Kong Country. That's a game that had been rumored since, 95, and even before then it was just assumed after the massive success of Donkey Kong Country, well, of course, Rare is going to do it.
At first people thought like it was an Ultra 64 game, and then it turns out, oh my god, Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and
so you need a new system.
Yeah, it was just assumed that, okay, they're going to take this, put it on the N64 in a new game. So, and then after it became apparent that they were going to do a trilogy of games, it was just a waiting game. Okay, 96, they've announced Donkey Kong Country 3. That's fine. Super Nintendo swan song. Give Dixie Kong her due. That's great. 97, we're going to get an announcement for Donkey Kong World or Donkey Kong Universe or whatever we thought it was going to be called. Of course, they went with the ultra stylish name of Donkey Kong 64. One of the many great decisions behind the making of that game. But 97 hit, summer of 97 hit, and they announced Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Quest.
What?
But no 3D Donkey Kong. So what the hell, Rare? And I can't remember if it was that issue of Nintendo Power or if it was a month later. It was a very quiet announcement about this, that in the back of Nintendo Power in the upcoming games list, they just quietly added Donkey Kong Land 3 under Game Boy as quarter for 1997 or autumn 1997. So this was the most underwhelming game reveal out of the original 6 Donkey Kong games that Rare made. Even Mario Kart 64 had a more dramatic reveal when we found out Donkey Kong was in it. This was just kind of an afterthought, and that's going to be one of the magic words of this spotlight, I think, is afterthought, because it sums up so much about Donkey Kong Land 3. And that's not to take away from Donkey Kong Land 3, because there is a lot to love and cherish, and to be quite honest, we build a lot of our bullshit and in-jokes off this game. So it's something to be cherished, but I think at the same time, we, the hardcore fans, have to be honest with ourselves about some aspects of DKL3 and the curiosities that kind of stem from it, But with the Nintendo 64 already out for more than half a year at this point, and Pokemon Mania and the Game Boy Color were still a year away from hitting Western shores. So this was kind of what it seemed like at the time was the twilight of the Game Boy. And that turned out not to be the case, because remember, Pokemon Red and Blue, they were original Game Boy games that hit in 1998.
Well, it came out around the same time as Game Boy Color, so it was kind of a system seller, even though it wasn't actually a Game Boy Color game.
Yeah, that's what I got, a Game Boy Color for my birthday in 1998, because I was a spoiled bitch. I got a Game Boy Color, and boy, I wish I could be a spoiled bitch nowadays to get a Super NES Classic or Switch. But I got a Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red, and I didn't care, because I wanted a new system, but I wanted Pokemon as a game more than any of the Game Boy Color titles. So yeah, fuck it, give me Pokemon. But that was still a year away.
Yeah, anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yes, 1997.
Right. That was still a year away, and quite honestly, they released the Game Boy Pocket, which was the slimmer version of the Game Boy that had a more crystal clear screen, which at the time seemed like a revelation.
Black and white instead of yellow and green for some reason.
Yeah, it was kind of like what the Virtual Console looks like now. The emulated games on the 3DS that were Game Boy titles. That's kind of what they look like. Although you can toggle it to the kind of pea soup color if you want.
The weird motion blur.
Yeah. But despite the Game Boy Pocket, it really did feel like this was the end of the era for the Game Boy, because the Game Boy came out when the Nintendo Entertainment System was out. What was the main console?
Like 89, so it's like I'm bad at math, but a lot of years later.
Right. So it had seen the end of the NES, or the end of the NES being the dominant Nintendo console. It saw the entire duration of the Super Nintendo. And here it was in the N64 era, still hanging on. But you knew, Nintendo's going to be doing a color portable. I mean, it's pretty much going to happen. And
you got to compete with the Game Gear somehow.
Right. It outlasted the fucking Game Gear.
And the Atari Lynx.
So, 97 felt like it was almost the end times of the Game Boy. Again, not the case, but that's the way it felt. So, Donkey Kong Land 3 didn't really feel like anything more than a weird obligation that we all just had to get through. Because
they made Donkey Kong Country 3, now they gotta make Donkey Kong Land 3 because...
Yeah, it really... They made 3 Donkey Kong Country games, so they had to make 3 Donkey Kong Land games and have a Game Boy semi-sequel counterpart to the Big Brother version. And trust me, as somebody who suffers from a very mild dose of OCD, and that influences a lot of my creative quirks and... likes and fascinations. I would say that I would have been completely devastated had there not been a third Donkey Kong Land. I mean, I wanted a third Donkey Kong Land, so all of this hemming and hawing about, well, I guess we had to do it. Don't mistake that for me not wanting it. It didn't have the same rush of excitement that even Donkey Kong Land 2 did. And it was partially because it was such an underwhelming reveal from Nintendo Power. But I think another part that had some, play in this was Donkey Kong Land 2 wasn't the kind of Donkey Kong Land game we were expecting. And it was in many ways a letdown, considering it was lazy in comparison to the original. And
it was basically Donkey Kong Country 2, but the levels are different, and it's on Game Boy.
Yeah.
But the first one was all it's got like new levels and new, you got the garter levels and city levels and
hogwash.
Yeah, it was new. Yes.
Right. So
everyone's favorite flying pig from off of the Game Boy Donkey Kong Land game, hogwash.
Yeah. So by Donkey Kong Land 3, they announced it. Okay, great. Am I going to have another 4 to 8 hours of Lockjaw's saga playing ad nauseum? And I think it would have helped had Nintendo Power showed off screenshots, information, anything when they announced it. But it just set the stage of, oh, okay, well, they didn't announce an N64 Donkey Kong. Hope this isn't the end of the road. This is going out with a real sad whimper. Then they announced Diddy Kong Racing, and we'll save all of the associated baggage, great baggage, the best baggage. We'll save that for the Diddy Kong Racing Spotlight episode coming up in November.
Was that announced later, though? Kind of out of nowhere?
It was out of nowhere, and I believe it was around late September, October. I'll have to check my astrological
Yeah,
star
Banjo and
charts.
Conquer got delayed, so hey, let's just put them in this game instead.
Right. Yeah, and that was after Donkey Kong Land 3 was announced. But once they announced Diddy Kong Racing, then all of a sudden Donkey Kong Land 3 really did feel like, okay, this kind of archaic 2D platformer on this pea green monochrome system. Let's just get it over with so we can get to the fucking main event of the year, and that's Diddy Kong Racing, the launch of the Donkey Kong universe, the introduction of Banjo and Conquer, a racing adventure that Nintendo Power is hyping as the greatest game Rare's ever made. Yeah, okay, let's get through Donkey Kong Land 3 first. And so I want to provide that historical context because I have to admit, even though I was a diehard obsessive, even before DK Vine, I was, like this weirdo guy trying to start a cult. And I guess the equivalent would be the guy on the street corner with the end is nigh sign. I was trying to, get people excited about Donkey Kong. And, I didn't call it the Donkey Kong universe back then, but, essentially Rare's Donkey Kong. Even I just didn't really care too much about Donkey Kong Land 3. I was going to buy it, and I'm sure I was going to enjoy it, but...
Well, I didn't even get Donkey Kong Country 3 until, years later. Sorry.
When did you get Donkey Kong Land 3, David?
Around, 2000-ish.
Okay. So you got it right around the time the Japanese got the Game Boy Color version of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Which we never got over here, which we'll save that.
We'll get to that later, yeah.
That's kind of more of a coda to this madness.
We got to do another Spotlight episode on that.
Well, I don't know. That would be more of an honorable mentions because we never got that. It's not Western canon, which I know people are pulling out their hairs at home. Listen to this because how could you say that, DK Vine? It's the Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Land 3. Yeah, well, we in the West never got it. I'm sorry. It's not canon to the Western canon. So, when Donkey Kong Land 3 was announced, it did share some similarities with Donkey Kong Land 2's reveal. Because they spelled the number 3 with Roman numerals.
Oh, yeah, that was weird.
Like they announced Donkey Kong Land 2. Donkey Kong Land 2 was announced as Donkey Kong Land Roman numerals 2. And then it had the subtitle Diddy's Conquest. They killed the subtitle and they changed the Roman numerals to the Arabic number 2. which, that was how Donkey
Because
Kong
it's
Land 2.
well, I mean, they're just retreading Donkey Kong Country 2, so obviously you got to have an Arabic numeral in that too,
Right.
so that people don't think it's a different game.
Well, it provided nice visual consistency with the Country series. And, I would have been fine had Donkey Kong Land 2 come out with the Roman numerals, so long as they established Donkey Kong Land games have Roman numerals for some bizarre reason. Because
Right, it would have been consistent, like Country games, Arabic numerals, Land games, Roman numerals, because,
Right.
I don't know, Game Boy, I don't know, Roman, I don't know.
Because Bear is a real big fan of the Rocky movies. So, but while Donkey Kong Land 2 got its Roman numerals revoked, Donkey Kong Land 3 didn't. And so Donkey Kong Land 3 was released with the Roman numerals intact. And this created a titling inconsistency that's still irritating as all hell to me today, David. Fuck.
Yes.
This is like sand in your asshole. It drives you crazy.
How am I supposed to count to 3? It's 1, Arabic numeral 2, Roman numeral 3. What's going on?
What also bugs me is Donkey Kong Land 2 altered the Donkey Kong Land logo. The land typeset was smaller and a little bit tweaked. And I believe the palm trees in the land, in the background, were also a little different. Donkey Kong Land 3 reverted it back to Donkey Kong Land's type and logo design, but it had the Roman numerals. So, what the hell, Rare? What the fucking hell? Was there a Donkey Kong Land 3 with Arabic numerals already copyrighted somewhere? And you're like, well, we can't do it. We have to go with the Roman numerals. What is the explanation here?
I wonder if this inspired the Saints Row series, because it was Saints Row Arabic numeral 2, Saints Row the Third spelled out, Saints Row Roman numeral 4. And don't even get me started on the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah, it could be worse. I guess all things considered, at least we only had to deal with this once. And this is a very minor, weird thing to obsess over. But again, as I said, minor OCD. Plus, I've been drinking Angry Orchard because it is fall now, and it is cider season. So that's my excuse for why I'm going to be drinking Angry Orchard, for the next few months. And that gets me extra agitated over minor slights, like the way you number a sequel. We're getting hung up on nonsense. I realize that. So I spoke of a subtitle for.
I mean, the fifth Fast and Furious wasn't even all that furious. It was just Fast 5, where they just like going, wee, we're going fast.
Yeah, and then the 8th one, they weren't even fast anymore. They were merely furious. And granted,
maybe they were like stuck in traffic, and like that's why they were so furious.
Well, they're getting older, so you slow down when you age. So, yeah, and you get angry, or maybe they're just sitting around watching Fox News all the time in their nursing home, and they're getting more and more furious and less fast.
Over their inevitable fate of the Furious, and like 8, like fate.
Oh, I got it. It's a very clever pun.
Very clever.
Nintendo's website did list Donkey Kong Land 3 with the subtitle, much like Donkey Kong Land 2 was originally listed. And that subtitle was The Race Against Time. And this was cut before the actual game came out, thankfully, because that would have broken me completely. It would have broken me like a fat man was broken over Bane's knee had they had a Roman numeral and subtitle combination. It would have just been disastrous for my mental health.
It wasn't even like Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. It was just a different Actually, what was Dixie Kong's Double Trouble anyway?
We discussed this. Nick and I discussed this on the 4-part Donkey Kong Country 3 Spotlight series.
Oh yeah, you did. Right.
Yeah, and we decided the Double Trouble was the Kremlins attacking and having to babysit Kiddy Kong, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. You could also say it was the Kremlins and Donkey and Diddy going missing, but there was a correlation there. So the more likely explanation is Kiddy Kong definitely factored into the Double Trouble. Or maybe, I think maybe, I'm sure Scraps, beloved DK Vine forum member and frequent Kongversation caller Scrap69 would say maybe she got her period during the game, and that was part of her double trouble. It's funny, though, there is some symmetry here, a third game having a time-related subtitle, because as a kid, I remember the third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, the awful one where they go to feudal Japan.
Oh, yes.
That was originally going to have the subtitle Turtles in Time, and that was cut before the movie came out. So,
well, wasn't that the video game, that the second arcade game was called Turtles in Time?
They went back in time at one point, but it was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
it was like
2,
most
the
of the
arcade
game.
game.
You go back to like caveman times, and then like you get sent into like pirate times, and then it's into the future.
Yeah. Well, there was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project, which was a pun because it had nothing to do with the creation of the atomic bomb, but Manhattan was raised in the sky like as a floating island. And
I got that one.
Yeah, but I think that was like a Super Nintendo one where they time travel. But anyway,
Yeah, that was that.
Ninja Turtles 3, because Ninja Turtles 2 was called Secret of the Ooze, and Ninja Turtles 3 was going to be called Turtles in Time, and then they said, nope, we're not going to have a subtitle in this one, which...
Wait, hang on. Did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Roman numeral 3 no subtitle?
Yes. That's the way it was presented. And you still see Turtles in Time crop up every now and then, but it was not officially part of the movie's release.
Okay, I just looked up the second Turtles movie. It did have a Roman numeral, so...
Yeah. So it stayed more consistent in that regard than the Land series did, but the Land series stayed consistent in not ever having subtitles on the final product. So anyway, The Race Against Time.
David. The Race Against Time, yes.
Yes. So what was The Race Against Time in reference to?
Well, clearly the game must have some sort of story.
Well, yes, and the story was actually written by Lee Loveday. So, while the story doesn't beat the wonky meta humor of Donkey Kong Land the original, or DK Vine's shitty fan wanking of Donkey Kong Land 2's identical plot of Donkey Kong Country, it kind of completes that trifecta, though, of interesting ideas for land game stories, whether they come from Rare or they come from the fans. And this is in some ways the most mundane of the land plots, but it has a certain gonzo charm to it that allows for some things that you wouldn't see today. David, I have provided for you in our show notes the instruction booklet scan of Donkey Kong Land 3's storyline, because there are people who accuse us of making up this story for Donkey Kong Land 3, and I want you to read this verbatim from the instruction manual as conceived by Lee Loveday.
All right, The Race Against Time. Usually one of the most restful and laid-back places imaginable, Donkey Kong Country had become a hive of activity in recent days. This, following the announcement of a contest to find the fabled Lost World that had dominated the legends of the area for centuries. Would-be explorers rushed in from all over the world to seize this long-awaited chance at fame and fortune. Wait, what? So, DK and Diddy were the first to get caught up in the craze. This left Dixie, quite literally, holding the baby. She sighed, looking down at Kitty, the massive toddler who skipped through the jungle at her side. Normally, she had no objections to babysitting Kitty, but what if she wanted to enter the competition herself? Nobody had even bothered considering that, of course. And why not? Hadn't she done just as much as Diddy in getting DK back from the Kremlings? Of course she had, but then she was only a girl, right? Come on, Kitty, she said, firmly changing her course to lead them to the shore. It's about time we showed them we're every bit as good as they are. You might not have had much of an idea of what was going on, but clearly Kitty knew the makings of a good adventure. Cheering heartily, he bounced along in Diddy's wake as she disappeared into the depths of the jungle.
I like how they make Kitty Kong sound like he's mentally challenged there.
It's like jumping around, but like the in-game animation just can show him walking, not bouncing.
I like he cheered heartily. Yay, we got an adventure. So, couple things. couple things about this. One, the hadn't she done just as much as Diddy in getting DK back from the Kremlin? So I don't know if there's this mindset that we can't reference Country 3 in this. That what if the people playing Donkey Kong Land games have only played Donkey Kong Land games, so we kind of have to ignore that the country games are even a thing, despite the fact that we call it Donkey Kong Country at the beginning of the story. I don't know.
So is there Donkey Kong Country within Donkey Kong Island?
Well, Donkey Kong Country is Donkey Kong Island. It's not Donkey Kong Country. It's Donkey Kong Country. You know, it's like Bison Country. It's Donkey Kong Country, you know. Of course, you know, nowadays we would call it the Rare Archipelago or the DK Isles, to be more specific to the main island and the offshore islands or islets that make up the DK Isles or Donkey Kong Country. But Donkey Kong Country can also include the Northern Hemisphere, Crocodile Isle, essentially the part of the Rare Archipelago that has a heavy Kong presence. So, all
right, so got this contest that has people from all over the world joining in.
Yeah, which I assume by world they just mean the Rare Archipelago, because I couldn't imagine, like, I don't know, like dudes from like I don't know, like Idaho or New Zealand, or, you know, like they're probably googly-eyed animals.
Maybe like Baron von Gool might be
maybe
his first.
Maybe Mr. Pants, you know, a yes. world explorer. Who's to say?
He wants to put a pair of pants all over the Lost World. Right.
So I think it's funny that the whole game centers around this contest to find the Lost World. This is our third Lost World in like 2 years. We had the Lost World from Country 2 and Land 2, and we had Krematoa from Country 3. This Lost World, it's basically yet another Lost World, and they get hung up on this nomenclature of Lost World. And by the way, this game, it's not made clear in the story here, but this game clearly takes place in the Northern Hemisphere. I believe south of where the Northern Hemisphere that we saw in Country 3 took place. So, this game, it's yet another Lost World in the Northern Hemisphere that's not Krematoa. Okay, sure. And I don't know who's putting on this contest to find it, but I would like to imagine it's some sort of like radio station, or like some, I don't know.
Maybe it's Nintendo Power, maybe?
Yeah, some Rare Archipelago, Northern Hemisphere, DK Isles, Donkey Kong Country equivalent. You know, I don't know, but it's like, oh, find a lost world and win big thanks to, I don't know, WKONG, the Kong. So, anyway, there's a bit of misogyny on Donkey and Diddy Kong's part in this storyline. And it's kind of the only time in the Country series where they're directly positioned as rivals or bad guys, even, if you want to take it to those extremes, for the protagonist. And the protagonist is Dixie Kong. Kiddy Kong is kind of inconsequential. She's merely using Kiddy Kong as a means to an end here to prove herself that she's every bit as good as they are, even though that should have been proved in Country 3, but I'll allow it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did rescue him from being brainwashed by a Kremlin robot.
Right.
So
she earned her video game hero bona fides in Country 3.
And collected all the DK coins.
Exactly. So maybe though, Donkey and Diddy are so tight, they're such an adventuring tandem when one of them isn't kidnapped, that, we'll just do it together. And Diddy is kind of a shitty boyfriend here, obviously. But I like that they kind of use some misogyny that was definitely apparent in Country 3's marketing campaign by Nintendo that focused exclusively on Kiddy Kong and undersold or even obscured Dixie Kong's role in the game. I like how they kind of
don't you know only girls can buy games with girls in them?
Yeah, exactly. So they kind of use that, even if it's not, there's no actual correlation there. It's still that feeling, that resentment is channeled in the game's story. So I like that, and I like that Donkey and Diddy are kind of unseen antagonists. I wish they did more with it in the actual game, because after you read the storyline, Donkey and Diddy Kong really never come up again, sans balloons. But it would be nice if, like, you could check in with their progress through quote-unquote cutscenes or something. It would be nice if it really did feel like a race against time, and it never feels that way. It feels like a very lackadaisical platformer.
But there's clocks on the Super Game Boy border.
Yes, there are stopwatches, David. Stopwatches. So, let's talk about the Super Game Boy enhancements real quick. Okay, so Land had that gorgeous palm tree border.
Yes.
That, the very plasticine, rare Donkey Kong Country style palm tree that we all know and love. Donkey Kong Land 2 had a bitchin' banana border that looked absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, you look at any of those, it's like, hey, this is from off of a Donkey Kong game.
Yeah, the graphics, despite being on the Game Boy cartridge, were on par with what you'd see in the Country games. So it kind of added a nice enhancement. And it was basically, more added imagery from the Country games. That was a nice bonus. Land 3 had a fucking shitty border. It had the stopwatches that you collect in the game, but they don't even look pre-rendered. They just kind of look like they're there. I mean, they are pre-rendered, I guess. They just don't. They lack any color or definition or detail that you got with, say, the bananas in Land 2. It is a minor gripe. It's stupid, especially since you can't even see the Super Game Boy enhancements on the Virtual Console versions.
Well, because they're so rubbish.
I mean, this is the way I played Land 3. I barely took a portable. I played it on my Super NES with my good buddy Elliot. So to me, that's it. That's kind of inseparable from Land 3. When I play it now on my 3DS via the Virtual Console, it just feels like something's missing for all the Land games. But I have to say, though, that even though something does feel like it's missing, I don't miss the stopwatch border that much, because it was just shit.
But how else are you going to know that it's a race against time?
Yeah, because it never came up in the game itself. Now, the stopwatches do come into effect at the end of the game, and there are races, but they have no bearing on the actual plot. Because by that point, the Lost World was already found. So, okay, minor gripes again, but it just felt like, oh shit, we need a border for this game. Well, we did palm trees, we did bananas. What else is associated with Donkey Kong? Like, they could have done barrels. That would have been fine, would have been brown, but whatever. Better than the off pearl white, or
maybe something like that dockside that we have on the site.
Yeah, something like that. Even of course, if our website can barely run it, I don't see how a Game Boy cartridge could. All right, well, let's talk about the characters of Donkey Kong Land 3. The few, the proud, the characters of Donkey Kong Land 3. Now, obviously, Dixie is the protagonist and Kiddy is the sidekick. And we already talked about basically their motivation. They want to beat Donkey and Diddy. And in essence, then the Kremlings, because the Kremlings also show up. And it's basically a 3-way race to find the Lost World. A 4-way race if you accept the interpretation that the Kremlings are still being led by Chaos, and K. Rool is acting as his own independent agent. So there's at least... on screen, there are at least 3 parties vying for the Lost World. 4, if you count Donkey and Diddy. And then a multitude of parties when you factor in all the unseen people from, quote, around the world who are looking
And
for
of
this
course,
lost
time.
and time. Time is the enemy to all. And Dixie and Kitty, I mean, they're as they are in Country 3, essentially. They don't have the team up moves, obviously, because they just teleport in as per land tradition, because there's only one character on the screen at a time.
Also, Kitty can't skip over water.
Kitty cannot skip over water, and that makes Kitty even more kind of a drag to play. But you know what? I played as Kitty. Like, Elliot and I would switch off the controllers for the LAN games, and he would play as Dixie, and I would play as Kitty, and I did pretty goddamn good as Kitty Kong in LAN 3, so no complaints about Kitty Kong. Sorry, taking an Angry Orchard swig. It fuels my video game nostalgia. For the great fall classic that is Donkey Kong LAN 3. Came out in October 97. Nothing says Halloween more than a race against time to find a lost world in a drainage ditch. 'Tis the season. So, Wrinkly Kong was the only Kong helper in the game, and the only other Kong in the game besides the protagonist. Because again, Donkey and Diddy Kong were not actually physically in the game.
It's a Donkey Kong game that Donkey Kong does not actually appear in.
Yeah, and it's I think it's the only rare Donkey Kong game that not only Donkey Kong doesn't make an appearance, but Diddy Kong doesn't make an appearance as well. So, like, you can, if you classify Diddy Kong Racing as a Donkey Kong game, that was another Donkey Kong game that Donkey Kong wasn't in. But Diddy Kong was in that one. Diddy Kong isn't in this one. So this one really is Dixie's game more than even Country 3 is. So, Wrinkly, though, is the only Kong in the game besides Dixie and Kitty. And instead of the save cave, she's still in essentially the same cave, but she's in, it's called Wrinkly's Refuge now, which I don't know why they changed it. There's no
Maybe
reason.
the Game Boy couldn't handle the word save cave because it takes up too much memory, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps. It's worth pointing out this is Wrinkly Kong's last living appearance in the Donkey Kong series. The next time we would see Wrinkly Kong, she would be dead. She'd be a ghost.
Wait, what if she's already dead? I mean, and like she's already a ghost in this one because it's in black and white, so you can't really tell.
Well, she does say in Donkey Kong 64 that she passed away sometime after
Country 3, not Land 3.
Right.
For all you know.
But I assume that's just Wrinkly Kong disrespecting the land games, as is often the case.
And of course, Donkey and Diddy didn't actually visit her in this game, so
there you go.
Just didn't know.
Yeah, from Donkey and Diddy Kong's perspective, Country 3 would be all that mattered. If had Dixie or Kitty actually been in Donkey Kong 64, maybe she would have said Donkey Kong Land 3. I think we just fan-wanked that.
Wait. So, apparently Donkey Kong's mother has been dead for 2 years and you just didn't know?
No. My interpretation of Wrinkly Kong's death is that she died during Mario Golf. Or she got very sick during Mario Golf. So, while Donkey Kong was yucking it up across the golf courses of the Mushroom Kingdom, Wrinkly Kong lay on her deathbed. I like to think that brought great humility and taught Donkey Kong responsibility. Before
he went off to play tennis.
Well, she was already dead at that point. I mean,
Cranky wasn't.
Yeah, but Cranky's still alive today, so it's not like there's any fear back in 2000. It was like, okay, well, Cranky just had his physical. Everything looks good.
What if he died during Mario Sports Superstars?
Maybe he was trampled by those ponies. He had a heart attack after seeing the shitty art used on those cards.
Well, maybe Donkey Kong couldn't actually pose for the cards because he was too busy visiting his... maybe that's why the...
Speaking of Cranky, it's worth pointing out that Cranky completes the trifecta of never appearing in a Donkey Kong Land game. Look, Funky Kong appeared in Land 2. He does not appear in this one. But Cranky does not appear in any Land game. But, he played a role in the story in Land 1. And in this game, his portrait is on the wall of Wrinkly's Refuge. So, There you go. Cranky kind of appears, but only as a static portrait. No, by DK Vine standards, that doesn't count as an actual physical appearance. Before we move on from Wrinkly Kong, we should point out the infamous line that Wrinkly Kong gives, usually with every visit. David, do you want to recite it for the people?
Keep an eye out for those Kremlins.
Kremlins, like Putin's house. Not Kremlins with a G. She actually says Kremlins. Which, you know, she's old. She might not have her teeth in. It's fine. But add that on the tally board for what the fuck Donkey Kong Land 3, because that was a clear typo, and it was just a complete lack of, or a complete absence of quality control, or a complete adherence to, we've got to rush through this game and get it out because who the fuck cares?
Hey, maybe they were just rushing through the writing to the.
Oh, fuck off.
Or maybe they were trying to warn us about the Kremlin attacking last year.
Mm-hmm. Right. They were not only warning America, they were warning the Donkey Kong fandom that at some point in the future, their largest fan site would be in Russia's crosshairs. Crosshairs with a K, obviously. Yeah. I don't know, but it just kind of became one of those like infamous memes in DK Vine culture. Keep an eye out for those Kremlins. Well, there's another infamous meme in DK Vine culture that this game helped to bring us, and that's the sole brother bear in Donkey Kong Land 3. And he's Bazaar Bear. He is Bazaar's model, and I think that's good enough for me, and that should be good enough for everybody. Look, if Donkey Kong...
it's not good enough for the Mario Wiki.
No, because Mario Wiki, they can be very precise, and they don't like to take even the smallest of leaps of logic. So
so like according to the character pre at the end, he's just called Bear.
Right. They don't call him Bazaar, or they don't call him even the brother bear, or they don't even invent a new bear for the game. Again, the fundamental laziness of Donkey Kong Land 3. It was actually my college thesis. And, okay, they called him Bear, but DK Vine was like, well, it's Bazaar Bear. One, it looks just like Bazaar Bear, and two, that should be enough. I don't need to give any more reasons. But because he's just called Bear, Mario Wiki lists him as Bear, and because DK Vine, based off of the Donkey Kong Country 3 Player's Guide, assigns the brothers Bear all the surname of Bear, hence Bazaar Bear, that would make, according to Mario Wiki, this character Bear. So this is kind of the bane of DK Vine's existence. And then, of course, people at Rare, namely Chris Alcock, have kind of run with the Bear in joke, and they've tried to say that Banjo's father is actually named Bear, and all sorts of good-hearted malarkey at our expense. But
so yes, according to Mario Wiki, Bear is a friendly NPC who appears in the Game Boy game Donkey Kong Land 3. He is the only Brothers Bear to have not appeared in Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, and the only one to appear in this game. What?
Yeah, so they must have changed that recently. Do they not even mention Bazaar Bear in the character bio on Mario Wiki?
Bear is identical in appearance to Bazaar in both Donkey Kong Land 3's instruction manual and the Nintendo Power articles about the game. Only refer to him as the Brothers Bear. This implies that Bear is not actually a separate character, rather a generic stand-in for the Brothers Bears.
Okay, so Mario Wiki's essentially saying it's Bazaar Bear, but because we're so wrapped up in our own legalese, we can't actually say it's Bazaar Bear, so we're going to say he's a completely separate character who did not appear in Donkey Kong Country 3. Ah! Mario Wiki! Yes, but we at DK Vine, the great protectors and chroniclers of Donkey Kong and shared rare universe canon, we say it is Bizarre Bear. We have spoken! And that should be good enough for all of us. We should all be able to go to sleep tonight.
It is Bizarre Bear of the Brothers Bear, who is a bear. It all makes sense.
Yes. That you should be able to go tonight snug and secure in the safe knowledge that there is no 15th Brothers Bear. There is no Bear related to the Brothers Bear. Banjo's father might be called Bear because Chris Alcock really likes to punch me in the dick sometimes. But this is not Bear. This Bear does not exist as a Donkey Kong Land 3 character. This is Bizarre Bear. Sleep soundly, children of the world, for everything makes sense. Now, Bizarre Bear, he runs the Sheepy Shop in Donkey Kong Land 3. So, he doesn't run the general store, he runs the Sheepy Shop. And the Sheepy Shop is essentially a casino without it being called a casino. Because the ESRB has some issues with the depiction of gambling in games, as Yooka-Laylee found out with Capital Casino. They had to make clear to Team 17 that there wasn't going to be any glorification of gambling in Capital Casino. It was all going to be kind of tongue-in-cheek, and it wasn't going to teach kids how to gamble their life away. So, but what the Sheepy Shop is essentially a game of what's the card game where you have to match?
I believe it's called the card game where you have to match.
Yeah, but isn't there a brand name for it? Like they sell it to kids here in the States. Concentration, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So
here we go. Concentration, the game on.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So that's what I associate with it as an American. It's known as several things around the world. Pairs, match, memory.
Text say so. Are we on the same Wikipedia article?
No, Wikipedia. No, I'm just a finely educated man, David. I don't know why.
Who didn't know what this was called like a minute ago?
I know, and then I analyzed my mind archives. I scoured them, and I pulled out the correct info because I'm an amazing human being who loves talking about Donkey Kong Land 3 and
hey, look,
bears.
As long as you're not getting it off of Mario Wiki, that's fine.
Well, maybe that's where match comes from as a term. Maybe that was edited by a Mario Wiki-er. But anyway, it's funny. Yooka-Laylee's Capital Casino also has matching card games as well. But yeah, this is essentially a matching game. You pay Bizarre Bear, and you have to match cards that have the character faces of characters from Donkey Kong Land 3 and some items well. You pay in bear coins, by the way. Bear coins are back from Donkey Kong Country 3. The last Donkey Kong game so far, besides the Game Boy Advance remake.
You use bonus coins the first time around, then bear coins if you want to play again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what the bonus coins do.
That's all the bonus coins do?
Yeah.
I completely spaced on that, and I've just beat Donkey Kong Land 3 in the last few months, because I knew the 20th was coming up, so it's like, well, I'm kind of rusty on Donkey Kong Land 3. I better beat it again, and
well, that's why you have me on.
I guess the resident Donkey Kong Land 3 expert. Yeah, I really thought the bonus coins got you into the Lost World if you collected all of them, and that's all they did.
That's the DK coins.
The fucking DK coins. Fuck off. Yeah, you're right. I just looked it up. According to Mario Wiki, and I quote, Bear is a Brothers Bear that owns the Sheepy Shop in every world of the game. He's offering the Kongs to play a memory... What? He is offering the Kongs to play a memory game. Was this, translated, 3 times through various different languages? He's offering the Kongs to play a memory game for a certain amount of bonus coins. He also provides hints pertaining to other levels and offers the Kongs to test his teleport. which can warp them to any location in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm glad Mario Wiki brought up the teleport, because the Bizarre Bear, I'm not going to call him Bear, Bizarre Bear basically serves the role of Funky Kong in this game. And another reason we believe he is Bizarre Bear is because Bizarre Bear was neighbors with Funky Kong in Country 3. And then in our headcanon, that means that he and Funky Kong developed a legendary friendship. Oh, the times they would have, Bizarre and Funky Kong, on that little lake set island in the Northern Hemisphere with Wrinkly Kong in the middle. Oh, the times they would have, not running a train on Wrinkly Kong. Don't think that's where my mind was going. They would laugh and come up with business plans, David. Oh, the business plans they would come up with. Ventures that they could get rich off of. When Funky Kong was paid the 41 hero coins in Country 3?
Oh, there were DK coins in that one.
There were hero coins, and it's Bizarre Bear.
I wonder if Mario Wiki counts DK coins and hero coins as separate items.
I don't even want to look. It's like the Ark of the Covenant. You just can't look too hard directly at it, or your face will melt clean off. I don't know why I did a George Costanza emphasis on that. I'm just getting really wound up about Donkey Kong Land 3, apparently. And Mario Wiki's interpretations of Land 3. No, so Funky Kong was paid the hero coins at the end, and he gave you the gyrocopter. But what did Funky Kong do with all of that new gold? He was filthy fucking rich at the end of the game. So what I believe he did was he invested in a new venture with his new business partner, Bizarre Bear, a businessman, a retailer. But they decided what the Northern Hemisphere needs. This is a prime vacation spot, so what it needs are gambling casinos. And you know what? We're going to launch the Sheepy Shop, which specializes in card games. But because Funky Kong had a stake in this, he also offered transportation services, as is his modus operandi. And so Bizarre Bear offered to teleport you across the southern Northern Hemisphere using the same teleportation effect that was used in Donkey Kong Land 1 when Diddy or Donkey teleported in or out. They had that tornado twirl effect. That's the same effect on the map screen when you teleport. That tells me that because Funky Kong, we say, was responsible for the teleportation in the Land and games and Country GBC, then he gave Bizarre Bear his original land teleporter from the first Land game, not Land 2 and 3, because that's more of a explodey poof effect. And that's how Bizarre got his hands on this teleportation device. It was from Funky Kong, his business partner in the Sheepy Shop. Ergo, no Bear, Bizarre Bear. Thank you. Fuck you, Mario Wiki. I'm amazing.
All right, let's just edit the Bear article. Fuck you, Mario Wiki. Hyle is amazing.
Please, people at home, do not. Feel free to add content to it, but don't add my profanity. Keep Bizarre Bear for the children. I like that headcanon that Funky and Bizarre are are tight. The Sheepy Shop, we should also point out, was named Sheepy Shop because get out of the gates from Twycross, from Manor Park, and then you're on Sheepy Road. And in Twycross, there are so many places of business that are prefaced with the term sheepy. So sheepy this, sheepy that. Driving through when I got to go to Rare last year, that really just bounces out at you. Everything is sheepy this, sheepy that, and that's where Sheepy Shop came from. It's just a weird in-joke from Rare that...
Have you actually been to the actual Sheepy Shop?
I have not. No, I don't know if it's still open, but I think the assumption is the Sheepy Shop was where the Rare crew would go to their 7-Eleven. Their closest equivalent to a 7-Eleven during this time was a Sheepy Shop.
Or if they wanted to gamble away their life savings in a card game or invest in teleportation technology.
Right. I'm sure there's a lot of shady shit going on in the back of the Sheepy Shop. But, yeah, that's where Sheepy comes from. It's a very insular in-joke that only the rare team at the time who made this game would understand. You could tell that they just did not give a shit. Like, they had this impression that nobody's really going to be playing Donkey Kong Land 3. Let's just stick our dicks out and put them on the table and see what happens. And that's where Sheepy Shop comes from. But I interpret Sheepy in universe to be this kind of like demure kind of way of saying, oh no, this isn't a rigged casino. Like, look how like shy and gentle we are. Oh, come on, we're just Sheepy. That's one interpretation, but I don't know. There could be others. David, do you have any other?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it sounds about right.
I mean, they could just
canon.
They could just be, offering people the chance to fuck sheep in the back room. It could be a brothel too. They could have those bleeders from Banjo-Kazooie Grunny's Revenge in the back.
I don't remember that being a dialogue option.
That's if you teleport back into the Sheepy Shop, you get to fuck a little bleeder from Grunny's Revenge.
Man, they were really expecting nobody to play this.
Considering they didn't even come out with Grunny's Revenge for another 6 years? Yeah, my God, there are 6 years between Grunny's Revenge and Land 3. That doesn't seem like that's right. It seems like there should be a shorter amount of time between the two. Anyway, let's move on and talk about the animal buddies. And there's not a lot to say here, David, about the animal buddies of Land 3.
Most of them were in Land 2, so just go back to that episode. Right.
Well, Ellie was in this.
Yes.
Ellie, and then there was Engard, and then there was Squawks, and then there was Squitter. On Squawks, it should be pointed out that there was no stages where you seemingly controlled Quawks or Squawk, the purple parrots. Every time a parrot appeared in Land 3, he had Squawk's capabilities. Ergo, Quawks and Squawk, his purple cousins, did not appear in this game.
And unfortunately, Parry the Parallel Bird did not make the cut.
Parry did not make the cut. And this is still double the amount of animal buddies that were in the original Land, but it felt like a step downward from Land 2, because Land 2 had Rambi, Engard, Squawks, Squitter, had Radley, and it also had Parrot Shoot Panic, so it had the purple parrots. It should be pointed out, too, that Ellie controls a little bit differently than she did in Country 3. She had an unlimited water supply, and she could spray water in any level in Land 3 versus just the ones with a waterfall or, when she could suck it up out of. Also, Sneaks didn't scare her in this game. She did not run away from Sneaks. So, but she couldn't drag the barrels. She couldn't suck up barrels with her.
Well, it's because there's too much water.
Yeah, right.
All the energy in her trunk was storing literally limitless amounts of water.
You see, David, I was going to say it's because the Game Boy doesn't have that many buttons, and so they had to limit what you could do with her. But you provided an in-universe explanation showing why you should be on the Donkey Kong Land 3 Spotlight episode of the Kongversation. Be proud, David. Be proud. This is why you're here on this Earth.
Yay.
Oh, yeah, the animal buddies also, you could only transform into them. There were no animal crates again in Land 3, which is disappointing because for me, the joy is really riding the animal friends, but they didn't give you that option. You can only transform into them. But at least it does have animal buddies. It's better than Retro's games. So bravo, Land 3, for actually having animal buddies, for actually having Squitter as a playable character. The last time Squitter is playable outside of the Game Boy Advance remakes. Oh, that's sad. Oh, that's sad.
The last time Engard is playable, right?
Well,
I guess he was in Barrel Blast.
Engard was in Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, right. But that game sucks.
Well, so did Barrel Blast. If we're going to really be,
hey, Barrel Blast. I should be on that episode.
Okay. Well, hey, you've popped that Kongversation cherry. We shot you, and it definitely hurt. So
one of these I will be on to defend the honor of Donkey Kong Barrel Blast.
I look forward to that because Barrel Blast is one of those ones I just kind of write off as okay. Maybe that wasn't great. So I look forward to a healthy, robust discussion on because Barrel Blast is a game that has plenty of merits, but Donkey Kong 64 has its merits too. But you won't see me defending that too many times. The music of Donkey Kong Land 3. Here's a little trivia fact to wow the lads and lasses at the local pub when it's trivia night. The only Donkey Kong Land game to have the same composer as its Super NES counterpart is Donkey Kong Land 3. Eveline Fisher did the music for Land 3.
What about the first one? Because Dave Wise appeared in the credits at least.
Well, but I don't. Dave Wise composed some of the tracks for that, and maybe he did have some role in it, but it was mostly Graham Norgate who's credited as being the man responsible for Donkey Kong Land. Obviously, Grant Kirkhope reinterpreted David Wise's music in Land 2, and Eveline Fisher, though, apparently reinterpreted her own music for Land 3. So, and she didn't rely on Lockjaw's saga. She didn't get hung up on a single song like old Grant did.
Well, there were a couple, but it's not nearly as much as Land 2, though.
It was never as super obvious as Land 2.
Like all the bosses use K. Rool's theme.
You weren't burned out on the same song like before you even finished the first world. So I consider that a win, and I don't have to ruin this episode by repeating that joke, which just delighted so many people last year when I wrote the Donkey Kong Land 2 Spotlight episode. The worlds of Donkey Kong Land. Now, again, Donkey Kong Land 3, excuse me. We're not talking about Big Ape City here, although I feel like when Super Mario Odyssey comes out, we'll be talking about Big Ape City aplenty. The worlds of Donkey Kong Land 3, as I said, they take place in a previously unseen portion of the Northern Hemisphere. I get at various points in DK Vine's history, I've rationalized, it's the Northern Hemisphere, and now I think I lean towards the Southern Northern Hemisphere. Ultimately, it's somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, either up, down, east, or west. Doesn't really matter.
The Western Hemisphere?
No, I like the inanity of terms like the Southern Northern Hemisphere or the Western North. Let's just keep adding on cardinal directions until it's just a fucking mess of terminologies. So the worlds of Land 3, they're a bit different, I would say, in that while they all kind of have a purported theme that's inherent in their name, it's the one rare Donkey Kong game that really doesn't stick to any theme. All of the worlds are essentially a mashup of various stages and archetypes without a prevailing theme to unify them. This is all essentially vaguely Lake Country. So essentially, remember Lake Orangutanga from Country 3? Well, imagine 6 worlds of that with some minor elements on the side. That's essentially what Land 3 is. So you kind of get tired of it. There's not this kind of thrill that you got. And granted, Rare's Donkey Kong games differ from Retro's Donkey Kong games. Retro's Donkey Kong games very much stick to the thematic archetype of that world. So
they put like all the jungles in one level,
right,
all the lava levels in one world.
Right. And yeah. Rare would always they would use maybe 2 of a background and then save one of that background for a later world, but recolor it or recontextualize it to make it fit. It's really amazing when you actually study what they did to keep it fresh throughout the whole game.
Yeah, it all feels like actual locations, and this one's just kind of random.
Yeah. And again, the laziness of Donkey Kong Land 3, just the we got to get this game done. We'll touch upon that, I promise. But the worlds I think are most notable, not for the themes they purport to have or the areas they're supposed to represent, but the puns in the level names.
Yeah, I mean, the country games had like a few, like Bleak's House, but mostly they went for like alliteration or rhyming.
K3 was another one. Yeah.
Yeah, but this one they like went all out.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country 3 had some literary references, some references that kind of went over the 12-year-old American's head. But
wait, it's just the house where Bleak is.
Yeah. It's not a Dickens reference. What? Charles Dickens? What? You mean the Christmas guy? Like, what does that have to do? Yeah, he's a snowman. What do you mean, Charles Dickens? What's Bleak's house? Yeah, again, like the Sheepy Shop, I think this really shows that the team behind Land 3 really just didn't care, and they thought nobody was watching, and they decided, well, I mean, they could get away. If they could get away with it, what did it matter? I don't fault them for this, and I love a lot of the names that they do use, especially in Cape Codswallop. The first world of the game is pretty much front-loaded with puns. So, should I go over all the worlds first, or should I go world by world and talk about the puns?
Let's do world by world.
Okay, so Cape Codswallop, the first world of the game, essentially the equivalent of like Orangutanga.
They're all the equivalent of like Orangutanga.
They are, but Cape Codswallop, I think, more so than the others. At least the others tried to pretend to be something else. Cape Codswallop. Here are my favorite pun level names in Cape Codswallop. The first level in the game is Red Wharf. And I didn't understand this as a kid. I didn't get it. It wasn't until probably my college days when I learned of the British show Red Dwarf that it made sense to me.
Yeah, I think years later somebody pointed out like the pun names and like Red Dwarf, and like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, obviously the Brits playing this game, and this game was made by Brits, would have understood that right away, but I was an ignorant American. And again, this was pre-internet being in every household, so...
I didn't even know what a Doctor Who was.
Right, exactly. I only knew Doctor Who from that joke on The Simpsons, where there's the Doctor Who marathon, and he buys 100 tacos for $100. Be adequate sustenance for the Doctor Who marathon. That's the only way I knew Doctor. So I thought, oh, Doctor Who, that's for fat losers who eat tacos. So Red Wharf, Ford Knox, which isn't really my favorite, but I guess it's a notable pun. Ford Knox.
It's a pun.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I bet it's.
You have to be thorough in this analysis.
It's not a great.
We'll get one chance to spotlight Donkey Kong Land 3. We're going to do all of them.
No do-overs on the spotlight episodes. That is the rule. Total Recoil, which again I didn't get. I heard the term Total Recall, I guess, by then, but I guess I maybe didn't associate it with the Schwarzenegger movie. But Total Recoil, okay. My favorite pun, though, in Cape Codswallop, this is one that when I first heard the name Coco Chanel, I busted out laughing because I got the Donkey Kong Land 3 name. Of course, the clownfish in Country 3 and Land 3, they're called Cocos. I'm with Coco. So this underwater river stage is Coco Channel.
Very clever.
It's pretty funny. Of course, now we know Coco Chanel was probably a Nazi collaborator. So,
yeah,
but hey,
everything.
It's just like Platonic reaching out to JonTron. You know, you're always going to have some Nazi affiliations in those early days when making a Rare-related game. You gotta shed them. Coco Channel. And the boss of Cape Codswallop is Barbos. The giant lurchin from Razor Ridge in the original Country 3. So, and you fought him within guard, except in this case, Barbos is kind of only half on the screen. He's or she, excuse me, she. Barbos is a she, and she's just kind of not centered, I guess, because the Game Boy has limited screen space. So
yeah.
You're just kind of running into the side of her. You can't even see the full thing. She's like Wilson from Home Improvement. Heidi-ho, neighbor and guard.
Oh, I thought it was odd, though. There's like a fence on the other side. It's underwater. Why is there a fence?
And why isn't Guard suddenly selling cocaine? It doesn't make any sense. Because Tim Allen sold a shit ton of coke before he did Home Improvement. He was a drug dealer. And then he snitched on his fellow drug dealers. So not even just a drug dealer, he was a fucking snitch. And he didn't get any stitches. I'm sorry to say. Well, I guess his character on Home Improvement did, because he was accident prone and and then he and then Al was like, I don't think so, Tim. And then the power saw would like slice off Tim's arm, and then he'd be like, I'm blue.
Unfortunately, the Home Improvement Super Nintendo game isn't DKU, so we're not doing a spotlight on that.
Didn't they time travel in that one too? Like, didn't they fight dinosaurs?
Well, I think the plot was like you have to like go to different movie sets, but like everything's trying to kill you. Like a bunch of tools went missing, so you had to go like to the soundstage next door.
I never actually played it, so I just saw screenshots of it. Like, I saw advertisements for it, and I just assumed it was like Tim tries to fix the toaster. It's like that episode of The Simpsons, that Treehouse of Terror. Tim tries to fix the toaster and instead builds a time machine or something. And now Tim Allen is the race against time. Home Improvement, just trying to get back to the present day so he can host Tool Time in time. The race against Tool Time. Okay, so Primate Plains. We talk about Tropical Freeze being the first time a Savannah stage was in a Donkey Kong game, and that's technically true. But I think Primate Plains trying to make us think it was like the Great Plains of Africa. Nevertheless, I love the name. I love the name Primate Plains, even if there weren't actually any grasslands to be played in any of the actual stages.
I'm not going to be able to use a plane level. There's no actual plane levels, so let's just call the world there Primate.
Yeah. But it had some great. It had a great pun level. Miller Instinct, one of the mill stages was Miller Instinct, which obviously I got back then because I obviously knew very well Killer Instinct,
like from off of Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah.
And
I owned the black Super Nintendo cartridge of Killer Instinct. It was like a jet black cartridge, much like the Donkey Kong Land trilogy were all banana yellow, and Land 3, by the way, continued that tradition to the bitter end of having a banana yellow Land 3 cartridge, which, boy oh boy, I have to say, it really made that thrill of getting a banana yellow Donkey Kong Land cartridge feel less special when you realize they weren't limited editions, that they were never going to make a gray Donkey Kong Land cartridge like they made gray Ocarina of Times after the gold ones ran out.
And then you're actually playing it in public and everyone thinks you're playing Pokemon Yellow version.
No, that wouldn't happen, though, for another couple of years. So
I didn't get it until a couple years later, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But back, man, 95 through... When did Yellow version come out? Was it 99?
I think so. Red and Blue were like 98, so probably.
Yeah. It's 99. So let's just say for those 4 years, people knew you were playing Donkey Kong Land, or they didn't know anything about Nintendo and just assumed you were just playing, I don't know, Tetris. And then Bleak didn't have a great... Bleak was the boss of Primate Plains, which makes no sense. But I guess Bleak being the... I mean, there were snow levels in Lake Orangatanga. There was a snow level in Lake Orangatanga, so, whatever. But Bleak, he didn't have the great pun name like Bleak's House, but it was Bleak Magic. Like Black Magic,
yeah.
but he's Bleak.
And you didn't get to do that whole throw thing, snowball fight thing?
No.
Yeah, he's just... throw barrels at him. You
didn't have that 2.5D perspective, that kind of skewing almost the 3D feel. It was just a 2D fight with Bleak in front of you, and you had to throw barrels at him. And so hey, but I love Bleak. It was great to see Bleak back. And it's worth pointing out too. We haven't really touched upon this in discussing Donkey Kong Land 3. That Donkey Kong Land 3, it reused all the archetypes from Country 3. But again, the level layouts were all new. And people give Donkey Kong Land 3 all of this credit that they do not give Donkey Kong Land 2. Because Donkey Kong Land 3 had original world names and original stage names. even though Land 2, the layouts of each level were all brand new. So essentially, there was little difference, little daylight between Land 2 and Land 3. It just gave the illusion of more effort, when really Land 3 was lazier than Land 2.
I mean, Land 2 just had the same story, so, and Land 3 has clever puns, so...
But it kind of goes to show you how...
Yeah, that's all you have to do, just call it something different.
Yeah, had Land 2 actually just gone through the very, very minimal effort of coming up with a new story and coming up with new worlds that use the Country 2 archetypes, people wouldn't be having the issues they have with Land 2. Like, people would hold it up. People hold Land 3 up in high esteem. I know we've kind of been praising it.
I'm telling you, it's all the level names.
Yeah, we've been praising it through the side of our mouth a little bit. But there are people who say Land 3 is the best of the 3 Donkey Kong Land games. And in some ways, I can see their point. Because Land 1 is the most original, but the backgrounds and the hit detection, and it has issues. And Land 2 obviously just feels like a retread because it reuses, at least officially, the same plot as Country 2 and the same level names for the most part. Land 3, it's lazy in a lot of ways, but it was the most refined and technically proficient of the Land trilogy. So people do prefer it, I think, by and large. Although I think as of late...
I mean, the first one's still like my personal favorite because of all the originality, but 3 is like technically the best. Yeah,
I think Land 1 has kind of gotten a critical reevaluation just because of its originality, and I think that's what you see by and large as people's favorite nowadays. But I remember Land 3 being held up as the definitive Donkey Kong Land experience, which I disagree with, but I still like it.
I can see where people are getting at.
Black Forest Plateau is the third world, and I love the name. It's very Germanic, Black Forest Plateau. But there were no great puns in this world. Very, very disappointing.
Hey, there's forest levels, there's plateau levels. That's all we need.
Right. It's a forest on a plateau. So there you go. And the boss, much like the boss, he was the boss of the main forest world in Country 3 of Kremwood Forest. It's Eric or Rick, or we still don't know how to pronounce it, right?
Yeah, I always say Eric or Eric. I don't know. It's Eric.
I don't have anything else to say about Black Forest Plateau, really. Like, we don't need to go stage by stage here. They're all just kind of remixed Country 3 stages. There's really no point. Great Ape Lakes was the fourth world, and it's another one like Primate Plains. I just love the world name, even if the world itself doesn't deliver. Maybe the equivalent of Great Ape Lakes would be Cotton Top Cove in Country 3.
They're trying to make a pun, or Grape Ape, but like Great Lakes. Wait, I don't know why I brought Grape Ape, but
Great Ape Lakes, yeah. And it's a
like
very
the Great Apes, but just stick ape in the middle.
It's a very American reference too, the Great Lakes of the United States and Canada. So I appreciate that. I definitely got it more than I got Red Wharf at the time, or Coco Channel. It's funny. Primate Plains and Great Ape Lakes, after I beat Donkey Kong Land 3, I didn't replay Donkey Kong Land 3 for the longest time. Because Diddy Kong Racing came out, and then Banjo-Kazooie came out, Pokemon Mania hit. There was really no reason to replay Donkey Kong Land 3. I didn't spend the time with it that I spent with the original Donkey Kong Land, or even Donkey Kong Land 2. And it wasn't until, recently, when it hit the Virtual Console, that I played Donkey Kong Land 3 quite a bit more since the first time I played it. So, as a result, my memory of Donkey Kong Land 3 dimmed very quickly in comparison. And the only things I really remembered, besides things like the Sheepy Shop and the plot of the game, were the world names of Primate Plains and Great Ape Lakes. They just stuck with me because they were fantastic names for worlds.
Oh, wait, hang on. Wait. There's still something important. The boss of Great Ape Lakes was Chaos, but if you'll recall, Donkey Kong Country 3, Chaos was secretly controlled by Donkey and Diddy, but so did perhaps K. Rool kidnap Donkey and Diddy again, or was it just two random Kremlings, maybe?
So I was trying to skip ahead to Tin Can Valley because
this is very important.
Well, I know. I always think Chaos is the boss of Tin Can Valley because that would make sense. Chaos is literally a tin can of a boss. Why isn't he the boss of Tin Can Valley? What the fuck, Donkey Kong Land 3? What the
Maybe it was named after the pipe levels, like, because it's like...
I'm sure the Land 3 team could have named quite a bit of things off of pipes, if you catch my drift. I'm suggesting that part of the inherent laziness of Donkey Kong Land 3 was through recreational drug usage. And
I see.
So, yeah. Now, Chaos was the boss of Great Ape Lakes, which, weird, but very important for continuity and canon purposes. So, if Chaos is still around, it brings up some questions. Is Chaos still the official king of the Kremlins? We knew he was a puppet ruler in Country 3, but do the rest of the Kremlins know that yet? And this suggests to me, no, they do not. And Chaos is still technically king of the Kremlins. And what you said about Donkey and Diddy Kong, there is nothing in this game to suggest that Donkey and Diddy Kong are inside of Chaos. So to me, that would suggest that yes, K. Rool, or not even K. Rool, because I think K. Rool is just kind of going rogue in this game. He's operating independently, working his angles to officially reclaim the crown of the Kremlins. More on that later. And the Kremlin crew, they just had two volunteers to be the cerebral brain power of Chaos. So you had two random Kremlins. Take your pick. Any henchman, any drone, doesn't matter. They could have been critters, or keeping in the Country 3 spirit of things, they could have been cobbles. I don't know.
Yeah, I just kind of assumed it was
cobbles, or since they love being in barrels, maybe we got Nakas in there. I don't know. I just assume that Chaos wasn't dependent on it being Donkey and Diddy Kong. That was just K. Rool loving some irony, loving some poetic justice in Country 3. But Chaos had to continue as king. He was the duly crowned king of the Kremlin crew, so they just had to get some volunteers to be his brain juice. And we got two Kremlins, two unsung heroes of the Kremlin crew, who we may never know their names, but god damn it, we're gonna honor them here at DK Vine. They are Kremlin heroes even, if Wrinkly Kong doesn't have her dentures in. Fuck yeah, random Kremlins. Future Hall of Famers right there. Maybe. We'd have to actually look at the rules to see if that could actually happen.
Honestly, for all we know, they could have won the 2016 Hall of Fame.
Only one of them, though. That would be the kicker. Only one of them. Or maybe it was Chaos and they only get partial credit. Like, your work contributed to the Nobel Prize, but you don't actually get the Nobel Prize. One of those things. So Tin Can Valley was the final regular world of the game. The only pun level name that jumps out at me here is Ugly Ductine, which is one of the drain pipe stages. Pretty good. I mean, I've seen worse. I've seen worse on this show, even. And the boss of Tin Can Valley was, of course, Baron K. Rulenstein. And you did some battles with him. He had like a lightning gun in this game, right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, yes. There was lightning, and you threw bombs, or maybe that was the second battle.
Maybe that was the second battle. I distinctly remember the lightning gun, though. It was like a taser that actually shot electrical bolts, which I would love to have. That would be fucking awesome. I'm not a big weapons guy. I don't need guns in my life. But if I could shoot thunderbolts like Thor himself, fuck yeah, sign me up. Or Zeus. Thor doesn't. Thor's the god of thunder, so he doesn't really shoot lightning. But Zeus shoots lightning. But the different pantheons, I realize.
Oh, yeah, also that.
Yeah. But, I whatever. the God shared universe. I'm sure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe we'll eventually get a Zeus, right?
Thor is like based on like Norse gods, and like Zeus is like Greek.
Right. But I'm sure there are Marvel heroes that tie into the Greek pantheon or the Roman pantheon. Like in DC Comics, Wonder Woman ties into like the Greek stuff, but there are like Norse gods too. All right, whatever.
I don't know.
Whatever. Anyway, so you beat K. Rool, and if you have all of the hero coins from the Sheepy Shop, you get them from the Sheepy Shop, which, by the way, I assume that Bizarre Bear minted replica hero coins. These aren't the original hero coins from Country 3. These are replicas of those hero coins that the casino gives out. So maybe they're not as pure gold as the ones from Country 2, Land 2, and Country 3. But
I don't know, maybe Bizarre Bear is a better video game hero than we give him credit for.
He's my video game hero, let me tell you. He does all of that video game heroing, and various fan wikis can't even get his name right. Nevertheless, he persisted. Bizarre Bear. So, you get all the hero coins, and somehow this unlocks the Lost World, which is a pipe in the lake and on the overworld. Okay.
No, it turns out K. Rool has found the Lost World and he won the contest.
Yeah, so I don't understand the mechanics of how you find the Lost World via the hero coins. Like, what activates this? Is it like like the amount of gold you've got like somehow like triggers some sort of like hidden thing? Like I don't like. Is this like a Lost World for the top 1%? I don't really know.
No, I think K. Rool just doesn't let you past unless you like pay him all your hard-earned hero coins.
Well, okay, so it turns out you find a Lost World, but oops, oh shit bags. K. Rool has already found the Lost World, and he's waiting for you inside. So at this point, the game continues. Like, this should be the end of the game, right here and right now. Like, oh, we lost. Fuck it. Let's go home. At least Donkey and Diddy also lost. But you go into the Lost World, and you attempt to face K. Rool. Maybe the thought is K. Rool has not alerted the judges of this contest, so we can kill him and still
honestly,
claim the prize? Yeah,
the narrative kind of falls apart at this point.
Right. I appreciate the work Lee Loveday did with the story, the setup, but there was really no follow through in the actual game, which makes me wonder if they just made this game and they gave it to Lee Loveday and are like, come up with a story if you want. We don't really fucking care. And then they hit a bong, as they tended to do. They got it from the Sheepy Shop down the street, of course. But you go to the Lost World, and this is the most underwhelming Lost World in any Donkey Kong game, and I'm including the retro games here. There's nothing special about this Lost World. It's just more of the same archetypes. There's nothing new under the sun here. Krematoa, at the very least, had some great gimmicks bedded into the stages, and there's none of that here. It's literally more of the same. And you're in this underground, like under the lake chasm that's like, and yet there's somehow already Kremlin factories here, and it's just
yes, the Lost World that it's eluded people for centuries, and there's like already Kremlin civilization in there.
Well, yeah. So anyway, it's
not even any clever puns in the level names.
No,
it's just alliteration.
Yeah, and
Ghoulish Grotto and Barrel Boulevard, Rainforest Rumble.
I love alliteration. I think alliteration is great. I mean, alliteration is part of the key to making a great Donkey Kong stage name. But I'm sorry, but Ghoulish Grotto and Haunted Hollows, like this wasn't even a spooky haunted world.
Well, there were Ghost Barrels.
There's also Rainforest Rumble. Yeah, Ghost Barrel. Rainforest Rumble, Barrel Boulevard. Like, that sounds like it would be in Big Ape City, but no, that's just a factory stage. Whatever. You fight K. Rool again and you beat him. And he doesn't die or anything. But it's worth pointing out that K. Rool gets away. Like, there is a scene where K. Rool, you've been collecting these stopwatches. You get them as prizes from the Sheepy Shop, and among all your other prizes from the Sheepy Shop. And then what K. Rool will do after you beat him is he's like, oh, you bested me. And then he throws all of the stopwatches he's collected through his travels at you and throws you into this new mode called Time Attack mode. And then K. Rool flies away on his little backpack helicopter thing and gets away. Therefore, K. Rool wins the contest. This isn't actually in the game, by the way. This is just what we have to infer from what the game's plot is and what the game shows us. K. Rool gets away. He gets the prize money from this radio station, and then he uses that prize money to build the mechanical crocodile Hyle with Snide and the Blastomata cannon that he then uses 2 years later in Donkey Kong 64.
But wait, the game's not over yet.
The game's not over yet, David, because we have Time Attack mode. Hot diggity fucking damn, we have Time Attack mode. And what Time Attack mode is they take, how many, was it like 12 levels from the game?
Yeah, something like that, like one of each type.
One of each archetype. And basically, it's a lot like the time trial modes from Returns and Tropical Freeze. You have to beat a time. And that's it. There's no Professor Chops here, but it's essentially where this principle in Donkey Kong games first originated from. So, hey, that's pretty cool.
And so, it's got that going for it. Oh, would you?
And there were some legitimately challenging... Like this isn't as hard as the retro time trials, but...
Yeah, there are some that are, like, flat out impossible if you don't know, like, where this invisible barrel cannon is. The coral.
Elliot and I just, like, grinded and not like... We weren't, like, grinding each other. There was no fraudage happening. But there was a lot of, like, just replaying the same level over and over and over again. And... it was like, this is impossible. There has to be some trick. One weird trick to beating Time Attack. And sure enough, there was an invisible barrel that blasts you towards the end of the stage. And then you beat Time Attack mode, and then you've...
get a trophy, yay.
Yeah, then you get 103%, which... this is the only Donkey Kong Land game to offer more than 100%. Am I wrong there?
Wait, did the second one? Hold on.
I thought the second one only offered 100% like Land 1 did. Or did Land 1 offer...
I shall fact check this immediately.
Yeah, you better fact check my ass, because I certainly didn't come prepared for this one. Maybe those in the live stream can fact check us, because that's what they're there for. We'll leave that. We'll see if anybody in the live stream has anything to say about that.
Oh, no, you're right. It's 100. I just loaded up my 100% save file, so it is 100.
I am correct for once.
You're right. I owe you 40 hero coins.
So K. Rool gets away while you're time attacking, but hey, at least you got 103%, and which means nothing in universe. By the way, yeah, you get a trophy. Who gives you the trophy? Where does the trophy come from?
I think it just shows up and says like congratulations, game completed.
So I have to imagine. I have to imagine these are like magical stopwatches, and this trophy just magically materializes from like the other side, from either. I don't really know how this works.
Maybe just Dixie is just annoyed that all this was for nothing, so just bought a trophy.
She bought a trophy from Rare Sheepy Shop where they buy all their bongs, and yeah. It was like a golfing trophy, and she just broke the little golfer off it.
103%. Sure, why not?
And then Donkey Kong saw that and was like, damn, I want a golfing trophy. And then that's why he ignored his ailing mother to go Mario Golf in 2 years in the future. I want to also address something about K. Rool, because theoretically, not just theoretically, blatantly, you can use Donkey Kong Land 3 as justification for how K. Rool came about his means in Donkey Kong 64. So in a lot of ways, it is kind of the perfect bridge between the end of the Super Nintendo trilogy and the beginning of the N64 game. And I love it for that reason, even though there's nothing in either game to support that. It's just fan conjecture. But hey, that's what we're here for. And if we can make these games a deeper, more meaningful experience, then I'm glad we are here. But what was K. Rool up to? So, I brought this up in the Donkey Kong Country 3 spotlight that I fan-wanked that because the ending to Country 3 was so unsatisfying that not only was K. Rool not only did he have an eggshell dropped on him, but I like to imagine that the Queen Banana Bird then sealed him in that egg and held him prisoner in the clouds. Because, remember, the Queen Banana Bird did say she would rid the land of K. Rool forever.
Well, clearly she thought that just dropping an egg would suffice.
Well,
nope, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, she didn't say, I'm going to rid the land of K. Rool for around 11 months or so, give or take, depending on when, the next Game Boy game comes out. So I like to imagine, and this is how I fan-wank away this, because to fan-wank away, rid the land of K. Rool forever, I say K. Rool was sealed in an egg and held prisoner in the clouds with the Queen Banana Bird and the other banana birds. So I like to imagine then that K. Rool got to Donkey Kong Land 3 by because he was sealed with his little backpack, his little helicopter backpack. So I like to imagine K. Rool tinkered with that until he built a teleportation device, much like Bizarre Bear and Funky Kong use in this game. And so K. Rool was able to teleport himself out of the egg with the Queen Banana Bird none the wiser. And then when she found out, boy, was their egg on her face.
And we never saw the Banana Birds again.
We did. Donkey Kong.
Oh wait, oh right. Oh yeah, Donkey Konga. Well,
they loved dancing to the beat in Donkey Konga. Craig Duncan's favorite Donkey Kong game, so we gotta respect Donkey Konga just a little bit now. Donkey Konga 2, I'm still gonna hate on, don't worry. But Donkey Konga, the original, gotta tip our hats just a little bit now.
Fine.
We've got a call to take about Donkey Kong Land 3, and then I want to wrap up this episode with some final thoughts on the inherent sloppiness of Donkey Kong Land 3. You've heard of sloppy seconds; these were sloppy thirds, and
with the Roman numeral 3.
We're also going to be getting into the Game Boy Color version ever so briefly, and then we'll give our absolute final thoughts. So not just Donkey Kong Land 3, but the final hexology, the final entry of the rare Donkey Kong Country / Land hexology.
Good evening, Hyle and co-host. This is Bean Dude, and first of all, thank you, Hyle, and by association, Chad, for keeping me entertained for 4+ hours while I camped out in front of Best Buy waiting for the SNES Classic. I got there at 4 a.m. Anyways, DK Land 3. No, I haven't played it. Although I should give it a fair shot. The first two Sonics for Game Gear are really fun, and those are essentially 8-bit companion games in almost the exact same way the Land games are. Even though I think my lack of strong desire to play them until now is due to the fact that some of the appeal for the DKC games was from their heavy atmosphere. Then again, I played Metroid 2 for the first time about a year ago, so I realized it is possible on the Game Boy to have atmosphere. It's just that game was kind of an outlier. Anyways, I didn't call in time for last week's discussion on the common criticism of DKU games. So speaking of atmosphere, I'm going to defend the last world of DKC-1 at Chimp Caverns. Yes, I actually like that world. Now, of course, I was disappointed by it when I first played DKC-1 on the GBA as a kid, but that opinion changed greatly for me over time. The abundance of caves and mines in DKC-1 really gives DK Island this sense of scale and realism, and all the other stage types feel like set pieces and, actual places that these caves lead to, as if they cut through the island. Then, after 5 worlds of new scenery, World 6 feels visually empty and cold and really instills this feeling of height, with the most ambient music in the game to back it, with high amounts of enemies, obstacles, and stage gimmicks, a lot of enemies, obstacles, and all that great stuff that really ups the challenge in especially DKC 1, even though upon replaying it on the actual SNES, it is much easier than the GBA version. Anyways, the stage gimmicks in this world are largely, almost entirely, every single stage. The stage gimmicks are based entirely on platforming and careful jumps. It's really a great, it's like a great thing that the obligatory, more energetic lava environment that was used in the second game, instead, regardless of whatever dev reasons there were for it to not happen in DKC1. And, it just turned out better that way.
Well, thank you for the call, which wasn't really about Donkey Kong Land 3. Very, very sneaky. Tried to use that as your Trojan horse. I'm on to you.
Speaking of final installments that were kind of phoned in.
But no, I think we can use this call as a jumping off point, so to speak. The land games, as far as atmosphere goes, you're right. They don't really have a lot, and what they do have is inferred. But I would argue that you don't play the land games for atmosphere like you play the country games for. You play them for a quirkier look at the same world. And because there is a lack of atmosphere, it allows for things that would seem outright ludicrous in a country game. Like, for example, flying pigs.
Or like the cloud levels with hearts in the background for no reason. Like, what's even up with that?
We fan-wanked it that it's tied into Secret Seclusion and the Snowmads, and Snowmads are just romantics at heart, hence the hearts. The land games are obviously a product of a different time, and I fully recognize that younger gamers who didn't grow up with the original Game Boy and didn't have this conception of portable counterpart titles that were semi-sequels. Like this whole notion is completely antiquated at this point. But as someone who was a kid and like completely got the philosophy behind it, I have a lot of love and affection for any game, be it like the Super Mario Land games, Donkey Kong Land. You brought up Metroid 2, which is viewed as an essential, part of the Metroid series, and not just this weirdo side title. But it's also utilizes some of the same principles because there is less you can do with the Game Boy and less atmosphere you can convey. But I think it kind of almost stokes the imagination a little bit more as a result. You kind of have to use your brain to fill in the gaps, and because of that, you get invested more in the world itself. And I honestly would not be as big of a Donkey Kong country fan, a big of a Donkey Kong universe fan, and as big of a Rare fan in general if it wasn't for the Donkey Kong Land game, specifically that first one, because it came out between Country and Country 2. It bridged the gap. It kept the excitement going, but it also expanded the world in a lot of weird and wild ways. And it made me start thinking about the world beyond just the borders of what the game showed us. And I have some of my fondest childhood memories of, driving in a car on summer vacation with magazines about Donkey Kong Country 2 and my Game Boy loaded with Donkey Kong Land. I was living that world, and my brain was constantly thinking about the possibilities of that world, how that world works when I don't have, the power button on for one of these games. And I owe all that to Donkey Kong Land. I owe my intense Rare fandom more than just a passing infatuation during my childhood to the Donkey Kong Land trilogy. So, absolutely give them a shot.
And it was compared to kind of the Game Gear Sonic the Hedgehog game, where it's watered down, but it's still great installments in their own rights. So I feel like the Game Gear Sonic games might enjoy Donkey Kong Land in the same way, product of their time, but
right. And as far as your comments on Chimp Caverns go, even though they're not really related to the topic at hand, but maybe they are, because as I said, we are wrapping up the last Spotlight episode for the sixth and final installment of the original 6 Rare Donkey Kong games. So, maybe it is an appropriate time to bring it up. That is a good point about Chimp Caverns. We were hard on Chimp Caverns, I understand, on our Spotlight series for the original Donkey Kong Country that I did with both Joe Mudd and Chad McCanna. I can definitely see that perspective. I probably felt that perspective. And, it's funny how everybody who plays these games walks away with a slightly different experience. And part of the reason I love what I do here on DK Vine and on the Kongversation is that I get to share my experiences with you, and you in turn get to share that with me. And I get to view things in a different light, and then that informs my long-held impressions. And, playing games is fun, but I always think talking about games can be just as fun. Sharing the experiences and not just treating them as like disposable entertainment that you just move on to the next game, but constantly just having them be a part of you and your life. And I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm still here, 18 years later on DK Vine. That's why I'm doing a 20th anniversary retrospective on Donkey Kong Land 3 in podcast form. I think it's great. So thank you for the call, and hope you got the Super NES. Well, you said you got it. I didn't. I sure as hell didn't get it. But
wait, so I guess it was a bad idea to go to GameStop in the middle of the afternoon.
Silly me. I just went to Amazon.com at about 3 p.m. and I typed in Super NES Classic. And who knew? Who knew Nintendo would make less copies than what would actually sell? They certainly did with Donkey Kong Land 3. I can tell you that. I got that on day... Granted, I reserved it at Toys R Us, but they had plenty of copies. I didn't need to reserve it. I think this game did not sell 1 million copies. It's sold like 6 figures. I think it sold like 600,000 or so, according to Rare, back on the Rare website. So it still did respectable, even though it kind of came in this really dead period of the Game Boy. And, I think maybe when Pokemon came out and there was this resurgence of the Game Boy titles and library, Donkey Kong Land 3 probably benefited from that. It probably sold a few more copies. So I think, we can talk about the laziness and sloppiness of Donkey Kong Land 3, but I don't think it actually hurt the game itself in the retail market. So David... This is something that's fascinated me since I played it. I really get the impression that the team was just rushing through this, and there was very little quality control from both Rare and from Nintendo. Now, granted, the game itself plays fine. There aren't any catastrophic glitches. There are less glitches here than in Donkey Kong 64. It didn't need an expansion pack to run. So I'm being a little bit too hard on this, but there are cracks in the facade that would have never appeared in even Donkey Kong Land 2, especially not Donkey Kong Land, and especially not the 3 country games. Why are there Diddy balloons in this game? The extra life balloons, the 1-up balloons.
Yes, I know. I know what Diddy balloons are. Don't patron. I'm Donkey Kong Land 3 expert here.
I'm trying to explain to people, because when I say Diddy balloons, they might be thinking Diddy Kong Racing balloons. I see. But in Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Land, the 1-up balloons have Donkey Kong's head on them. Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Land 2, they have Diddy's head because he was the star of that game. Donkey Kong Country 3, they have Dixie's head. Not her ponytail, just her head. And she has white in her eyes for some reason. But they were still Dixie's head. Donkey Kong Land 3 does not use the Dixie balloons. They have Diddy's balloons.
Maybe they just figured, they're both monkeys wearing hats. Nobody will notice.
Yeah, nobody will notice except the hardcore fans who are going to one day start a fan site and bitch about this on the 20th anniversary podcast. I don't No, I mean, this was obviously Donkey Kong Land 2's engine. Look, Radley is in the code for this game. People have, like, hacked into it with, I believe, Game Sharks, or maybe Game Gears. Yeah, they had Game Gear for the original Game Boy. So, yeah,
Game Genie.
What's that?
Yeah, Game Genie. They had that, yeah.
Game Genie and I believe Game Shark then later on. Because people use Game Shark to unlock Mew in Pokemon.
Well, these days they could just dig into the code and hack for themselves.
Yeah, they could. And there were also ways to unlock Mew in Pokemon just all natural without actually, like, there's a way to glitch Mew out of hiding. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, people just mess with the code nowadays. But I'm old school. I prefer the whole notion of buying a device that you then strap onto the cartridge. I love strap-ons. What can I say, David? I love, especially with the King of Swing games, I love strapping on for a good pegging experience, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't. Please explain.
A little bit of wordplay there going on, because King of Swing we refer to as a pegging game because you jump from peg to peg. But there's also the sexual practice of a sexual partner, usually a female, putting on a rubber or prosthetic phallus and strapping it onto them to simulate male genitalia, and then in turn inserting it into the anus of their male sex partner so they can have their prostate stimulated.
I see what you did there. You used the same word, but used in a different way.
I was inspired by the first-class punnery of the Donkey Kong Land 3 team, and I thought, you know what? I can do it too. And then I thought, wait a second. It took me years to figure out Coco Channel, so I don't want people to not figure this out until, like, the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong Land 3. I want people to know I'm referring to pegging, the sexual act, where you insert a prosthetic phallus into the male rectum. I want people to be clear on that.
All right.
So yeah, Diddy balloons are in the game. This was Donkey Kong Land 2 rebuilt with Country 3 aesthetics. Radley is in the game code. You can glitch him out and briefly play as Radley. I mean, there's a fan wank for the Diddy balloons. Donkey and Diddy were nearby, so I like to think that whenever you came across an extra life balloon, then that would mean that Diddy's close. So that would really help feed into the race against time. There was no, like, ticking timer in the game. There was no countdown like Majora's Mask. But I like to think that every time you saw a Diddy balloon, you knew Diddy and Donkey were nipping on your heels, and you had to hurry. And meanwhile, Diddy was collecting the Dixie balloons. So it was just... They were crossing the streams a little bit there, right? That should win me the Pulitzer. That should win me that should win me like a no prize from Marvel Comics. That
makes sense. I mean, Dixie wasn't even invited to find the Lost World, so why would they put balloons, Dixie-shaped balloons?
Well, I like to imagine that the balloons are naturally in the style of the retro Donkey Kong Country games. They're just blank slates. And whoever the biggest video game hero in the area is, it takes the form of their head. So in the retro games, Donkey and Diddy are both on equal standing, so they're neutral. And then Donkey, Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky are all on equal standing, so they're all just neutral. But, whew, okay. So... There's also a massive, catastrophic, awful typo in the character parade in the credits, and I don't even know how this fucking happens. This is pretty bad.
Like even Mario Wiki is having none of it.
Mario Wiki doesn't even reference it. I checked Mario Wiki because I thought maybe because if they're going to be that much of a stickler about Bear. Then I'm sure they're going to list this as a separate Kremlin, but they don't even acknowledge it.
Well, let's just explain what they say. In Donkey Kong Land 3, Nakas, along with Clasps and Kachukas, are still semi-common enemies. The game erroneously lists Nakas as Crushas, yet aside from the name, there's no difference between the Nakas of Donkey Kong Country 3 and Donkey Kong Land 3.
Right, so they refer to them as Crushas, which of course is the iconic big-boobed muscular enemy from Donkey Kong Country who would become a supporting singular character on the Donkey Kong Country cartoon show, and then become playable in Donkey Kong 64's multiplayer. How did that happen? Like, that Crush is not even in this game.
And yeah, it happens like twice, because apparently there's one part where you ask advice from Bazaar Bear, and he says like there's a bonus barrel by a Crusher, but so there were two separate occasions where they called Naka Crusher for absolutely no reason. Maybe
that's just Bazaar Bear's ignorance. Maybe he doesn't like know his Kremlin classifications.
Well, you think he'd know his own name?
Well, yeah, but he never refers to himself as, he never says I am Bear. So I'm not referring to the end credits, but the in-game dialogue. Maybe that's the reason he calls Naka Crushes, just because he doesn't know. He's got his wires crossed. He's busy managing a casino and a general store. How the fuck does he have time to go to Kremlinpedia and memorize all the fucking different Kremlin types? Of course, Wrinkly Kong also calls them Kremlins. So that's another classic typo, which we fan-wank away, but it's a typo nonetheless. Why was the quality control in Donkey Kong Land 3 so fucking piss poor? It's just so unlike Rare, and it's so unlike Nintendo to allow such substandard quality.
What's weird is that they have stuff like that, but the gameplay itself is perfectly functional. Yeah. There's no big major glitches or anything. It's more polished than Donkey Kong Land 1.
I think they just got a late start on Donkey Kong Land 3. Maybe they started it midsummer and they just rushed through. It was a small team. Look at the end credits. I mean, it was a pretty damn small team, all things considered. They were just rushing through it. They had to get it out before Diddy Kong Racing because they didn't want to compete. And it was just gotta get it out. And it came out the latest. It came out in October in comparison to the June release of the original Donkey Kong Land and the late September release of Donkey Kong Land 2. So, I don't know. There is definitely some issues in its development and issues that we may never know. But it's an historical curiosity all the same. And, I don't hate Donkey Kong Land 3. I love it, and I love the storyline. I love all of the weird little in-jokes we've gleaned from it over the years. From it over the years. And I don't know, I can accept the weird, incongruent things like it uses Roman numerals, and there's typos all over the place, and there Diddy balloons, whatever. Ultimately, they're just small little nitpicks. Overall, it's a fun experience, but it does feel underwhelming. And, Japan in 2000, they didn't get Donkey Kong Land 3 at all. Maybe that's why there was a lack of quality control. It was all done through the Western side. And Japan just, for whatever reason, maybe because they were already gearing up for the Game Boy Color then. I don't really know what the underlying principle
Game Boy Color was a whole year away, but I don't know, maybe that was it. I don't know.
Maybe because they were already in the throes of Pokemania over there by then. But Donkey Kong Land 3 did not come out until the year 2000 in Japan. And by that point, Rare did a complete... this is weird for Rare, because they usually made games with a Western audience in mind, first and foremost. But what they did for Donkey Kong Land 3 was, for Japan only, they made a Game Boy Color version with no intention of ever bringing it out in the Americas, Europe, Australia, anywhere. And Donkey Kong Land 3 in Japan was called Donkey Kong GB: Dinky Kong and Dixie Kong.
Dixie, it's Dixiey for some reason.
Oh, really? Okay. So, yeah, and of course, in Japan, he's called Dinky Kong. Although, again, in Western canon, Dixie also has another cousin named Dinky Kong, because in Donkey Kong 2, she references Dinky Kong. So Dinky Kong must exist, and they can't be referring to Kiddy in the Western canon, because his name is Kiddy. So, ergo, there is a Dinky Kong out there somewhere. So I've never played the Game Boy Color version, and
I actually have it.
Yeah, I know. you can play Japanese Game Boy Color games, on American Western systems just fine. There's no like that. That's the great thing about the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance is you could import games from around the world and just play them on your system. I remember Ozzy Ben sent me a copy of the Game Boy Advance Donkey Kong Country 2, an Australian version of it, before it even came out over here because he had it and he had an extra copy for some reason.
And I think they're bringing that back with the Switch. You can do because the 3DS was region locked, but I think they turned around on the Switch. But don't import a Switch game if you just heard it from me.
Yeah, don't ever listen to David Lynch.
Probably look somewhere else if you want to import a Japanese game. Hang on, actually.
Are you looking it up right now?
No. You don't fuck it. Look it up yourself.
This is about Donkey Kong Land 3, not the goddamn Switch.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, for some reason I've just never sought it out. Like I've never bothered to just pull it off of eBay like so many DK Viners have. And part of that is just because if it's not meant for me, I don't really care. Like, Donkey Kong Land 3. For one thing, I can't read the text. I don't know if Wrinkly Kong would still have the Kremlin typo because I can't read Japanese.
Assume it's all the same dialogue because I've already played it in English, so I just
for whatever reason the map screens are not animated in the Game Boy Color version, so you won't have like flashing lights out of the Sheepy Shop, which seems kind of like a buzzkill to me. Like, is it really that much better then if it's in like rudimentary colors? They didn't even like do a great job of coloring it. It's just
I think part of it is like the more simplified backgrounds compared to like Donkey Kong Land 1.
Yeah.
So, but like the waterfall levels actually look really good because it's like a lot of detail in there. So.
But like the actual like Kong characters.
Yeah, the characters are like 4 shades of brown or something.
Yeah. They're not even fully colored. So, part of me still hopes that eventually Nintendo will like release a virtual console version for Western gamers of this, because it's again a curiosity. It'd be nice to have in the official Western canon, but
it probably won't because like it's in Japanese, so they'd have to like localize it back into English,
right? And they're loath to do even the most minimal effort for that kind of stuff. I realize that, but again, it
got some badly aged NES sports games to bring to the Switch, so
there's still hope. There's still a chance.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lose any sleep over this. Just like you should not be losing any sleep at home over the identity of Bear. It's Bizarre Bear. You can go to you can dream sweetly tonight, my loves. Just imagining you all at home, sleeping in your beds, thinking about bears. I'm
just gonna let you keep going.
Donkey Kong Land 3. It was okay, I guess.
I don't know. I think it's the most like technically proficient game. And,
technically proficient, creatively middling. Like Donkey Kong Land 2 was technically like worse off in that regard, but it's more memorable because the inertia of Donkey Kong Country 2 that it just shamelessly sucked off of, it's still stronger than anything Land 3 can come up with, which Land 3 doesn't even like really tap into like the best parts of Country 3, like the RPG kind of barter quest on the map screen. It just completely sidesteps all of that and doesn't play into it. So Donkey Kong Land 2 is ironically benefited from being a shiftless, cheap bastard and just being Donkey Kong Country 2 all over again, because Donkey Kong Country 2 is such an amazing experience. Why wouldn't you want more of it, even in watered-down form? Where Land 3 almost shoots itself in the foot by not trying to repeat that mistake, but it doesn't have anything more worthwhile to say. You know what I mean?
No, I thought it was... if nothing else, the level names make it more memorable than Donkey Kong Land 2.
Look, I like Donkey Kong Land 3. No, I love it.
Even. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just comparing it to Rare's other
I can certainly
Donkey
see
Kong
where
games.
people would find to be like their favorite, because
If this was the first Donkey Kong game you played from Rare, I would fully expect and hope you would love this, because you have every reason to love it. But this was the end of an era. This was the last original 2D Donkey Kong side-scrolling game by Rare. And it just kind of went out with a whimper, obviously not as great as Donkey Kong Land in the originality department or the weirdness department, but there was enough weirdness baked into the cake. Well, I guess you can cake something in if if it's filthy enough, it can cake. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say with this, David. I'm trying to give Donkey Kong Land 3 its due while also being realistic about what Donkey Kong Land 3 is. Then I feel like, oh, you're being too hard on Donkey Kong Land 3. Ease up, Hyle. Say something nice. And then you're like, well, okay, but you got to be realistic about Donkey Kong Land 3. People are going to think you're just a shameless fanboy. Say something bad about Donkey Kong Land 3. I think the heart of this, I'm just scarred because I was so enthusiastic about Donkey Kong 64 when it came out, and I'm still paying for that sin today.
I don't know. Anyway, it's on the 3DS Virtual Console, so yeah, the short answer is go buy it now if you haven't already.
It's still timely to this day, because if I were to give, say, Robert Mueller any advice, I would tell him, watch out for those Kremlins.
This has been a File 2 production.
Qué rico.